Hello, this is Dr. Rick Herzog, and I want to welcome you to PBA 510, Public Personnel Administration. I'm going to make a short video where we're going to be talking about human resource management, which is also the title of our Berman, Bowman, West, and Van Wart textbook for the course, Human Resource Management in Public Service. So very similar to Public Personnel Administration. We won't dwell on the differences too much, but in this presentation, again, as an overview, I want to talk with you about the context, the continuity, and the change that will occur in public sector organizations. As you're going to see, the context becomes very complex, and we're going to need some continuity, and change is ever present. So, a couple takeaways from this presentation. Again, this is just going to be a broad overview. I'm not going to go down too many rabbit holes with you today, but I want you to understand the need for some type of continuity within all this complexity. And we're going to start to look at human resource management, HRM, systems change. But first of all, we have to look at a system. Here's our system. We have an organization, which is yellow, which is populated by several faces, by several people. So an organization technically defined as two or more people designed to meet a goal. And that goal is very important because it's often called the mission statement. But as you can see from this particular diagram, a little bit of a Walmart effect, is we have smiley faces and then we have sad faces. Not everyone is going to be happy to be in our organization. Perhaps they're working for an organization where they don't agree with the mission, or they don't really see the vision that helps them reach that particular mission. So the mission of SFA is to educate students. The mission of a city may be to improve the quality of life of its citizens. Those can be very motivating factors. So in order to get people into our yellow circled organization, we're going to have to have a hiring stream. The hiring stream is what allows us to get people in to our organization. Now, we're going to come back to this basic slide time and time again, and we're going to make it much more complex as we go, but we're going to break out the hiring stream right now. One thing that the hiring stream, a lot of times jobs have not been updated for years, and with the fast pace of technology growth, that's not a good idea. So a lot of times you have to go in and do a job analysis, which is part related to a job questionnaire. You ask people what they do, how often they do it. You ask them what the essential functions of the job, and go through this whole process called a job analysis. Once that's completed, then you can update the job description, which could be the title of the position, could be duties and responsibilities. Again, the essential functions of the job are related to the duties and responsibilities. And then we have something called knowledge, skills, and abilities. So we put that into this job description. Then we have the qualifications. How much experience do you need? Do you have to have supervisor experience? What type of education do you have to have? What type of certifications do you have to have? These are all listed in the job description. So now we can actually, with a job description, if we have an opening, we can go ahead and make an announcement. We can make an announcement. We have an opening for a patrol officer. We have an opening for a clerk 2. We have an opening for a jail administrator. Whatever the position is, we can announce it, and once we announce it, then we can go ahead and start the recruitment process. We can start recruiting applicants for the particular job. I know one time our dean and I was chairing a faculty search, he asked me how many applicants we had, and I said, I think we have 5. He said, well, that's not a pool, that's a puddle. But then I asked him, well, how many new faculty members can we hire? And he said 1. So I said, how many people do we actually have to have apply? Well, the answer is 1. So sometimes it's not necessary to recruit a lot of people, because when you recruit hundreds of people, all of a sudden it makes this part much more difficult, the screening process, which can be done electronically. When people apply electronically, if they don't check the appropriate squares, or if they cannot check the appropriate squares, master's degree required. Well, if they don't have a master's degree, then we screen them right out of the applicant pool. Okay, so then we come up, maybe some background checks here, and then we come up with our interviews. Who are we going to interview for the particular job? And we're going to talk more about using different types of interviews, behavioral and competency interviews versus traditional interviews, which would ask questions like, what's your biggest weakness? And then, of course, the answer would be, I'm a workaholic. Okay. Then we're going to actually do the hiring. When we decide to go ahead and send someone a letter that they have been selected for the position, want to get their acceptance, we can hire them, schedule some type of orientation where we can get paperwork completed, go through equal employment opportunity types of training, other types of things that protect the organization from legal liabilities. And then this is going to get cut off here. Well, I think you can still read it. Onboarding. This is kind of a new concept where we look at the first year of employment holistically. We want to make sure, even before orientation, that the employee has a place to work, that they have their email set up, that they know where to park, they have keys, the appropriate keys to their office and to the building, or passcodes. Then, after orientation, when they come to work the first day, have they met the appropriate people that they're going to be working with? Do they have something to do? Throughout the year, there may be a mentor that talks with them at some level to make sure that their first year is really important. I can go back and look at studies, but usually an employee decides whether or not to stay with an organization fairly quickly in their employment, probably within a couple weeks. I gotta get out of here. I don't know, I really like it here. I am going to stay for the long term. Okay, back to our organization, getting a little more complex. Now these crescents out here, these are things external to the organization, but they're going to go in and influence the organization as we speak. So a multitude of values that we're going to continually talk about here. And again, we're going to break this out. Accountability and transparency. Go back to Thursday's Daily Sentinel. The headline is Dickey, who's a member of the hospital board, Nacogdoches Memorial Hospital Board, Dickey : transparency key to hospital success. So being transparent, being accountable with the taxpayers' money, very important value when it comes to managing an organization. Being responsive to customers, citizens, and clients. Responsiveness. If a person has a problem with their utility bill, how is it resolved? Efficiency. Today is solid waste pickup day at my house. Is the person picking up the solid waste efficient with his truck that offers automated solid waste pickup, or does he dump trash on the road, have to stop the truck and then pick it up and put it back into the trash bin? Or can it all be done with an arm that takes the trash can, dumps it, puts it back on the road? So some level of efficiency. Effectiveness, even if this person is not efficient, they can still be effective and pick up all the trash. So effectiveness is the ability to reach your goals. Representation. This is something I'm going to look at over the next couple of days with the Trump administration. A lot of people feel that at the top echelons it's not very representative. We don't have a lot of diversity. Hopefully diversity based on race, ethnicity, religion, gender, and any other people with disabilities, and any other type of societal demographic, comes naturally. We don't have to force these things. And then fairness and justice is a value. So being fair to employees and providing justice and following due process when necessary. Okay, another crescent out here is going to be technology. Technology influences the organization all the time. Here at SFA, we use something called Banner as our information system. A lot of private sector organizations use something called PeopleSoft, trying to get away from the paper processing and trying to use technology to our advantage to go ahead and things simply as direct deposit of paychecks. The internet, used to recruit employees. Extremely important that organizations have some kind of brand on the internet. It's not going away anytime soon. The use of video. A lot of training at SFA is video based. Last week I went through property management training, or 2 weeks ago, and it was all done on video. Periodically had short quizzes. Did not have to go sit in a classroom with a bunch of other people and go through that type of training anymore. Social media. Can or can we not use it in background checks? How does it work to promote our programs? Do we need to hire people with special skills that can use social media? Okay. Now we're going to look at, I think we're going to look at this arrow right here, which is compensation. Compensation, very important to determine whether people are happy or sad. Over the last few days, I've talked to many people that are kind of sad and some people that are kind of happy. Goes both ways. But when we talk about compensation, we're talking about a big part of it is salary. How much you actually get paid for a particular job in money. So that's going to be part of it, but a big part, about 20%, is benefits. I know, I'll have to look again, but I know SFA pays over $800 a month for our health insurance. So, and then they have, organizations like cities often have the employee puts in 8% into the Texas Municipal Retirement System, and cities put in, say, between 14 and 16%, almost double. So it's a very lucrative retirement plan, which is a great benefit. Okay, internal pay equity. Do we pay people with similar responsibilities the same? I used to work for a hospital. We always claimed that the maintenance engineers were worth as much as nurses and should be paid the same. Our argument in part was because if the water, the plumbing, the electrical, the heating and cooling system do not work properly in a room, the nurse cannot do their job. So they're equally important. So internal pay equity. External pay equity. Do we pay police officers in the city of Nacogdoches the same as police officers in the city of Highland Park? Well, the answer is no, but there's different working conditions. But when working conditions are the same, we tend to think that there should be some level of external pay equity outside the organization. Then we have personal pay equity. People that work harder should get paid more. People that don't work as hard should get paid less. And then procedural pay equity. Last year around this time, Nacogdoches County approved a merit program. How is that merit going to be allocated? What procedures are going to be used? Are they going to be equitable? Is there going to be a grievance procedure if you don't like your merit pay increase? And then finally, all this compensation, comes down to fiscal constraints. I mean, we just habitually live in times where there's never going to be enough money. I mean, we're never going to have big surpluses. So, therefore, we have to work within the confines of fiscal constraints. I know at SFA we had basically a 4% merit pool for pay increases this year, which again, going back here, made several people happy, but where the procedural equity was out of whack, made several employees unhappy, where they only ended up getting like a 1% raise for whatever reason. It may come down to something we're going to talk about later called politics. Okay, we have another crescent here. This one is going to be well, the legal environment. The legal environment. And the legal environment penetrates inside our organizations in many ways. We're going to talk quite a bit about the U.S. Constitution, more specifically the First, Fourth, Fifth, and 14th Amendments. So we're going to talk about due process. We're going to talk about freedom of speech. We're going to talk about freedom of religion. We're going to talk about privacy, etc. Various laws penetrate our organization from the outside, like the American with Disabilities Act, ADA, but the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA. So we're going to talk about laws, state statutes. State statutes cover certain things like sick leave. They also cover telecommuting. Who can approve telecommuting for a state organization? It has to be a department head, cannot be a supervisor. So, and then all the court cases, like Oger-Bethel versus Hodges, recognize same-sex marriages throughout the entire United States. Well, that doesn't sound like a human resource case, but it actually is, because that's going to have a tremendous impact on benefits and beneficiaries of employees. Simple things like bereavement pay. Who can go ahead and take advantage of that for particular people that leave us. Okay, getting really complex. Really complex here. So we're going to look at this arrow here. We're going to look at policies. And policies, boy, that's what helps keep a lot of continuity, because you have to follow the procedure, like reporting. I know a procedure. I have to file a procurement card report by 5 o'clock on Tuesday. It's a procedure. It keeps accountability in place. So hiring procedures, termination procedures, sick leave policies. How many hours of sick leave do you accrue in a particular month? What happens at the end of employment? Do you get compensated for your sick leave? Can you put your sick leave into a pool for other employees to use? What if you're only going to be out for an hour? Do we document 1 hour of sick leave to go to the dentist, etc., etc.? So promotion policies. How does a person go from being a police lieutenant to a police captain? How does one qualify to become a police chief? Something the SFA is going to be going through in the next couple of months. And then grievance procedures. Very important to allow employees to grieve, because these things can avoid lawsuits. And because one of the first questions often in a lawsuit, did you exhaust your employer's grievance procedure? No, I bypassed it. Well, sometimes you have to give the employer a chance to make things right if an employee has been wronged. Policies governing work hours. Student assistants at SFA have to swipe in and swipe out when they work. So there's an electronic record of their work hours. Doesn't mean they're working in between swipe in and swipe out, but at least there's a beginning and an end. Okay, getting real complex, as you can see. So we're going to go down here with something called motivation. That can have a big factor on the level of satisfaction, dissatisfaction of our employees in our organization. Are they motivated? A lot of times the boss can motivate people. The old saying, people don't leave their jobs, they leave their bosses. Sometimes the people that one works with are a motivating factor. Other motivators can be actually the work itself. I really just like my work. I don't like the people I work with, but the work is so rewarding. Enjoy it. Thoroughly enjoy it. And then the organizational culture. At SFA, we have something called Purple Fridays. People seem to like Purple Fridays. People seem to like, we have an app where you can order food called Topinga. Through my intervention last year, I got us a 10% employee discount if we use Topinga. So we don't have to wait in line. So you have busy faculty staff members can just go pick up a sack of food, broadly defined, without having to wait, and they can get back to work or take a shorter lunch. So good stuff that can actually motivate people. And of course, goal attainment. Is a person preventing domestic violence? Are they helping victims of domestic violence? Those can be very rewarding and very motivating. Are we trying to educate people in a way that they will stop committing acts of domestic violence? On and on. Of course, that'd be more of a nonprofit organization. Okay, so we got to look at another crescent here. Politics. Politics. Simply, Harold Laswell wrote a book, Who Gets What, When, and How. So let me just take an example that everyone can probably relate to. Which motorist gets a citation on a Monday afternoon by a DPS officer? Again, involves discretion by the officer as to who gets what, when, and how, and that relates to politics. Go back to the pay example. Who gets a 1% versus 4% raise when start of the fiscal year for us is September 1, and how is it given with a monthly paycheck? Okay, here we're going to look at outputs and outcomes just a little bit. There's a big difference between the two. Outputs are things that we can easily measure. Number of potholes filled, number of dead animals picked up off the road, number of traffic citations delivered. The outcome is safer streets. A little bit more harder to define. Safer streets is an outcome. We can look at the number of traffic accidents. I know in the first 10 years of our current police chief, we reduced traffic accidents in Nacogdoches by 43%. That's an outcome. Accidents, fewer accidents must correlate to safer streets, I would think. So these two things kind of come up as people in our organization produce things. I mean, outputs, number of graduates, outcomes, are they getting meaningful jobs in their career fields? Okay, now we're going to talk about exit. Here we often talk about the 3 Ds. The 3 Ds are discipline, demotion, and dismissal. So when do we discipline employees? Do we ever have to demote them? And then the ultimate exit is dismissal, or when a person retires. I talked to a lot of people that have retired, so they have left the organization. So all these things have to be considered, and they will all change. Makes things very complex. Okay, so there you have it. Human resource management, conclusions. Hey, I hope we have a great semester. I hope you enjoyed this overview. I know I went through it fairly quickly, so if you have any questions, concerns, let me know. And I try to respond to emails, quickly as possible, although a lot of times I'm off the grid, especially on weekends. So please be patient, and if you have any concerns, I'm more than happy for you to just give me a phone call. If you don't want to document it, just give me a call during my office hours and say, hey, what about this? And the only way we become better is if we get feedback, and you're going to get a lot of feedback this semester. So, alrighty, talk with you later. Have a great semester, and enjoy PBA 510.